Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Uncut Gems, starring Adam Sandler, Lakeith Stanfield, Julia Fox, Kevin Garnett, Idina Menzel, and Judd Hirsch, directed by Benny and Josh Safdie. Now, before I get into this movie, I have seen this before, but did I like it or was I frustrated by it? Let's see how this goes. We open in Ethiopia, where archaeologists find a magical stone with powers called the African Jew, I guess is what it's called. I'm just going to call it the stone for the rest of the movie. While someone is injured in the leg, and we get to a surgery of Howard Ratner, played by Adam Sandler, in a terrific performance in New York City. And we get to Howard walking in 2012, and he walks to his office and bumps into a collector who slaps him, as well as Demony, played by Lakeith Stanfield, with cash out, and he calls a man who brought his boss Arnold's collector, or Arno's, excuse me, and he gets home to his assistant, and he sleeps with, named Julia Fiore, played by Julia Fox. And this character, with his New York accent, was pretty good. Howard gets a call from Demony to meet a basketball player named Kevin Garnett, who's in his shop, and Howard gets there and meets Kevin for the first time ever, and he's a fucking giant. And they talk and argue until Howard gets a package, as it's the magic stone, which is going to be the MacGuffin for this whole movie. And a man comes in and is, done with Howard, and leaves while Howard shows it to Kevin, and they see the whole universe. And this MacGuffin really got on my nerves. And the character Adam Sandler played it was a great performance, but his character was just very frustrating. Kevin wants the stone and holds it for one night while borrowing Kevin's 2008 NBA championship ring. And after they leave, he takes it to Alberto's pawn shop and asks for $1,000 and tries to get it back by Friday, while the collector follows him around until he gets to Stanton's restaurant to place a bet to make Kevin's team win the game for the night. And he watches the basketball game and gets interrupted by his wife Dina, or something like that, played by Idina Menzel, telling him to tell his son good night. And she comes off like a bitch to him. And why the fuck is she married? Is he married when he's sleeping with his employee? And this plot is completely ridiculous, while the other characters just come off unlikable. Howard continues watching the game as he goes to the apartment with Julia, and she gets home while Julia is undressing as he texts her while in the closet. And this motherfucker is a pervert, as he spies on her while undressing, and it scares the shit out of her. And we move on to the next day, and Demony got held up in traffic, and Howard learns Kevin fucked him and wants to go to Philadelphia, and interrupts Kevin while at practice. And Demony walks away from Howard, and the music choices are very distracting, while the cinematography is actually kind of good, just kind of. Howard is at his daughter Marcel's school play and finds Arno's collector there, and goes after him and gets caught and taken to their car and torture him, while Arno talks to him and strips him naked in the trunk until Dina gets him out of the trunk. And directors Benny and Josh Safdie do a good job at making Howard completely unlikable, as he fucks up left to right. Howard talks with Demony about the stone, and after how Marcella's upset with her father, and Dina with her husband, about how much he missed the play, and he goes to the city and gets in a club as he finds Julia there. And honestly, I get the impression Howard and Dina are divorced, while he talks with Demony about the stone, while The Weeknd is singing in the concert, as he was an independent singer at the time. And he spies on Julia, and he finds her doing a blowjob with The Weeknd. And Howard kicks Julia out of the apartment, and they have an argument outside so the public could see how humiliating was this scene. Very humiliating, as some of the scenes are humiliating in a laughable kind of way, and in a strange way, I'll say it best. Howard walks back to his office to sleep there, and the next day comes, and Howard is on the phone with people until Julia calls Howard and Kevin's assistant, threatening her to lawyer up, until Kevin and Demony show up, and the buzzer doesn't work as they try to open the door and get this stuck for a couple of minutes, and he brings up the auction we brought up earlier in the film. Anyways. As he gets the stone back from Kevin, and there's too many arguing throughout the movie because of Howard's fucked up style. Demony pours wine in Howard's fish tank and walks all over to a place as we move on to Howard having dinner with his family, and Arno, who happens to be there, despises him. And after Hanukkah dinner, he leaves Julia a fucked up message, and they watch a basketball game and sees Kevin humiliating himself as Arno ignores Howard the entire time, and Howard talks with Dina about giving him a second chance in their marriage, and she confesses how much she hates him and she hates being around him. And these scenes are very upsetting. They leave the Hanukkah dinner to make a stop at Howard's apartment to check something while his son needs to use the restroom. And I do like how simple this movie is, but it's too frustrating of a movie to watch while Howard's son brings up how he had a girl living in his apartment. And Howard tells them to never speak of it ever again, and they drive home, and Monday comes to the auction and looks up the price, and it's lower than he wanted. And he calls the auctioneer in and demands her to change the price and fuck the changing, which is obnoxious, as this movie is mildly obnoxious, I'll say at best. When a couple of people come by and tell them Kevin is going to buy it, and he says he fucked up and the auction is in process, and the worker and Kevin keeps wanting the stone, and Gooey, played by Judd Hirsch, buys it for lots of money, and Howard goes up to Arno, and his collector come up to Howard and get beat up by his collector twice, and he gets thrown in the fountain water and goes back to the office while Julia happens to be there, and she comes to Howard's office to cheer him up. Well, he's very upset, and he sends everybody home while he has the stone back. And again, this movie is very fucking frustrating, as it frustrates the shit out of me. Julia shows Howard a tattoo of his name on her ass, and he goes on the phone with Kevin's assistant, and he still wants the stone. And Howard gets Kevin's championship ring back and bets the Boston Knicks, which is Kevin's team, to win the accurate score at the game the very night, and gets Arnold's money from the bet. And Howard calls Dina and tells her to keep the kids in the house while trapping Arno and his two bodyguards as he watches the game with them trapped, and he sends Julia to Las Vegas to double the money. And Kevin plays his game, and Anyways, while Julia is watching the game in Vegas, and she gets hit on by some gentleman and hides from some criminals working for Arno, and hides in the gentleman's hotel room in the casino, and she gets out of the back way and after Howard wins the bet, the bodyguard shoots Howard in the face, and Julia is on the way back to New York, as this climax ended up rather depressing, as this doesn't make me like the movie, but by how much? Let's talk about it. I'll give this movie a 4.7 out of 10. It really was a great performance by Adam Sandler, and his accent is pretty good, as this was a different kind of role for him, but the character he played was very frustrating, and the MacGuffin he has throughout the movie annoyed the shit out of me, and the plot was just ridiculous, but the acting by the actors are so bad, as the other characters come off rather unlikable. Music choices are very distracting, while the cinematography is actually kind of good, and directors Benny and Josh Shafty do a good job at making this character absolutely unlikable, and he fucks up in so many levels, and some of the scenes are absolutely humiliating and laughable in a strange way. There's too much arguing throughout the movie because of Howard's fucked up style, and the scenes are very upsetting, and despite I like how simple this movie is, but at the same time, it's very frustrating of a movie to watch. And this is a weak non-recommendation for this movie because it's mildly obnoxious and it frustrates the shit out of me, but it's not the worst thing I've seen. But there's too much arguing to the point I can't stand it. And the ending felt like a downer. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for this review. And until we, I don't know, until some point, earn some money and don't bet whatever you do.